Shalom, everyone, and welcome to the Magi update. As prescribed by the Magi and our interpretation that a coming conflict would ensue following the blood moon, and even giving dates to which they would supposedly happen on, I could not get a single person from the IDF or the Israeli embassy or any person in Israel anywhere to even respond to the several emails that I sent out concerning the Magi's blood moon transcript. Neither did they listen to me during the first conflict when I had sent 2 emails a month in advance warning them about fires, which came in the form of arson kites, mortars, arson balloons, and rockets. Today was one of those days that was listed in the video which we released on this channel on July 26th, before the blood moon even happened. A day of conflict. We also warned about a possible event that we interpreted as an evil plan that causes harm, and it has something to do with water. We didn't know exactly what. We suspected an attack on an Israeli or Gazan water source, but it gets better, folks. Israel, in a move to broker a peace deal with the Palestinians, allows a Gazan contractor to bring in water distillation equipment, and the Israeli restrictions on the movements of goods into the strip were lifted. You can find an article about this as well. Just Google it up, type it in. It's right there. Now, I would like to ask the question, where do you think all of these new rockets came from? The Gazans are blockaded on all sides. Okay? I cannot see how they're getting the equipment, how it's getting pulled in for them to just create all this stuff. They need to have a constant influx of supplies, gunpowder, munitions, and so it seems like the evil plan that causes harm that had something to do with water in our translation of the heavens was accurate, at least to some degree, in my opinion. Now, there still might be some sort of attack on a water source, and from the language of the sign that we interpreted, the conflict should, I'm not saying it will, but it should get much worse by reason of the coming sign that's going to happen through the 19th and through the 31st. A full 13 days of basically throwing gasoline on the fire. We call this particular thing constructive interference. That's where you have a sign, okay, such as some sort of distinguishing mark in the heaven, which is called Oth in Hebrew. It's in Genesis chapter 1, verses 14 through 16. When you have an Oth, or a distinguishing mark or banner in the heavens, which we also see in geometric shapes, it depends on the language of that particular aspect, but sometimes it could increase a previous aspect if they're connected. Now, what we are seeing is another aspect that is going to come. It will happen on the 19th of the month of August 2018. And this aspect will last for 13 days. I'm hoping that this next sign of the heaven will bring an end to the conflict, because there's a possibility for that. But in my gut, it feels like, oh, this one's going to get worse. If I tried to explain exactly how we are formulating these things, I would be here for the next 12 hours talking to you. Now, the Magi team and I are working on getting this coming sign translated. I have not made up my mind totally yet with the current translation of what we're seeing, or interpretation, not translation, but the interpretation of what we're seeing. I can go either way. We need to have another meeting, but as far as Israel is concerned, back in like June 1st, I had sent an email to them, actually 2 emails, giving them very specific dates to watch out for, because there were some aspects that happened in June and July that said in their translation, "Please gather burning," which was odd enough. And when we continued to look at the sign to discover, which nations could be affected by it and what all was involved, Israel was one of those nations. And I suspected that, well, they were the ones who were going to get burned. And so as I sent the email to the IDF, the aspect happened. And sure enough, as I told them very precisely in the email that I sent to them, arson kites, arson balloons, mortars, and rockets lit 2,000 acres of prime Israeli real estate. I never got a response. So there was more aspects that were coming up. They said basically the same thing, except a little bit different. I emailed them again, and this time I emailed a few other people, hoping to get some sort of a response, and no response. And as I told them the exact dates to watch out for, the violence in the conflict sparked up again in the land of Israel. And so now, a third time, not only did I email the IDF concerning our latest transcript of the blood moon, but I also emailed the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., and 4 people that worked there, one of the top people. I emailed several schools in the land of Israel, rabbinical schools. I figured, well, if they're rabbinical, or maybe if I can get maybe a rabbi or someone to look at this transcript, they would understand it, because they do study the stars a little bit in the Talmud, or if they do Kabbalah or something. And I never got a response from them either. And this time I found another IDF website, so I emailed 2 IDF websites. No response. And sure enough, even in the video, which was declared as one of the hot dates for a flare-up to happen, it happened. It happened on the 8th and the 9th. And then, what do you know, it stopped. Now, here's the interesting thing, is that all of the other flare-ups of violence that happened in Israel under the translation of "Please gather burning," every time the aspect of the heavens would stop, the violence would stop. Now, I can also say this, is that these aspects, they were not just in right ascension over Israel, but once a day, the ruling planet of these aspects hit every nation in the world. And for a short amount of time during these aspects, the entire world seemed like it wanted to just murder itself. There was conflicts happening everywhere. And when the aspect stopped, it seems like the whole world just went into quiet mode for a little bit. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up, okay, is because we've got another very big aspect happening. This is the biggest aspect of the year, and this is not one to mess around with. I don't even know what to say. Like, this aspect that's about to happen is more powerful than the language of this blood moon. And it's just as bad in translation, and it's even worse in the interpretation. So, this is a warning that goes out to the people of Israel, is to get ready in case something happens from the 19th to the 31st. And if you're looking for a reference to see if what I'm saying is true, or if I talked about this stuff before it happened and gave some insight about the language that God Most High has given to us in the stars, you can go to my Facebook scroll down, there's dates of when I posted stuff, and I even give references that during these particular dates, I give my reference, my links to all of the craziness that was happening in the world under these aspects. The language of the heaven is something that people don't really pay attention to anymore. Not sure why, but I guess it's hard to understand. It sometimes puts my brain in a knot, but it's important because the Creator made these aspects, and He made the stars and the planets and the constellations for a reason. There's multiple ways of formulating an interpretation of the heavens depending on what you're trying to figure out. I'm not comfortable at this time giving the keys, all of the keys to this understanding just to anyone, because after all, this is YouTube, which in many ways is like the Walmart of the internet, and you never know who's watching your video. And there's a lot of dangerous stuff within the understanding of the Mazzaroth that a person can take and selfishly or greedily use to his own benefit and hurt others. And that's not what the Magi do. This is a warning to preserve life and to lift life up, not to crush it underfoot and see what you can steal from it. So with that said, the Magi team and I are still working on a transcript. We're looking at it. I'm still waiting for the last pieces of the translation to come through. Unfortunately, I won't be able to share the emails that I sent to the IDF, because when I went to their website, when you click on Contact Us, all it does is pop up a square that you type a message in, and you can only type in so many words, and then you hit send, but there's no way that I can actually prove to you that I wrote these emails. And unfortunately, you know, I would really like to show you the proof that our translations of the heavens have come to pass, hopefully to win some sort of trust with the viewers and with the people, so that in the future, when we see something bad, we can give you a forecast of what's happening so that people might be able to prepare. Obviously, Israel made the mistake of not listening to us when they should have, and because of that, they lost 2,000 acres of prime Israeli real estate, and they allowed truckloads of rockets into Gaza. All we know is that the heavens were declaring an evil plan that causes harm that had something to do with water.
וואי וואי, איזה לחץ! חבר'ה! אוי ואבוי, אוי ואבוי! אבל תקשיבו, לא, בלי לחץ, אמא, לכי למיגונית, לכי למיגונית! אל תדאגי חמודה, אל תדאגי, אל תדאגי, הכל יהיה בסדר. בואי, למיגונית, למיגונית! למיגונית!